Welcome along, everybody. Wonderful to have you with us for another Canterbury Tech online meeting, our third so far. Hopefully I sound okay this time. We've had some sound issues in the past, so do let me know if there's any issues with my sound. I'm getting thumbs up from Neil, so that's great. Now, we've got a couple of great speakers joining us this evening. And before that, we've got a quick update from Canterbury Tech and a couple of quick pitches. Now, first up, I'll run through our protocol for this evening. Your microphones will be off by default. You can choose to have your video on or off. Or obviously, when we're into breakout rooms, we prefer you had it on. We're going to drop you all out into breakout rooms for some informal networking and small groups. Please don't dominate the conversation. Everyone gets a go. No sexism, innuendo, bad language, or slurs of any kind, please. In other words, be nice. And if anyone has any concerns about conduct, please note the name and privately message Brent, Neil, or myself. We'll consider removing them from the meeting. Ask questions via the chat feed. We might pose one or two depending on how we go for time. Brent will be monitoring the chat feeds. So Neil's going to kick us off with an update from Canterbury Tech. Neil.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me and see that screen share. Is what we're going to do tonight. And some new members. We'll skip through roughly the same format as we have in our in-person events. So some new members, some of you might be on this call tonight. Welcome to all of you. Hope to see you in person in the coming weeks. NPSs, God, look, they're climbing. They keep climbing. We've got to screw something up tonight to bring them back under control, I think. But good to see we're striking a chord with many of you. Here's some upcoming online events. There's a whole lot of them going on, let's face it. So this is a very brief snapshot of a few that we thought were of interest. The aerospace meetup might be of particular interest. Obviously, one of our speakers tonight is in aerospace, Stefan from Vaughan Aerospace. And this on the 19th of May, the aerospace meetup has a Zoom catch up about career pathways in aerospace. So our evolving plan for what Canterbury Tech is doing over the coming weeks and months, those of you who joined us a month ago, this slide hasn't changed a lot, but some of the detail has behind it. So we are going to continue to do at least monthly online events. We've talked about our mentoring program for a while. We hope to have some dates to announce next month for that. The podcast, we've had some conversations recently about doing something along the lines of technology and the role it plays in New Zealand and Canterbury's economic revival. So we're looking to hold conduct a few interviews over the next few weeks and then perhaps summarize it after that. Some student-oriented online events. These are part of our relationship with Christchurch NZ, but current students who are going to be looking for work, if there is any, towards the tail end of the year, helping them find that work. But we're not a recruiter. Tech Week is an online series of events in July. We will be participating in it in various ways. We have a couple of events planned for Tech Week, more about that in due course. The C-Suite Forum is for leaders in the local tech sector, and I need to jack up another get-together on that front. And the Tech Summit will be happening in what format and how much it's in-person versus online remains to be seen, but we're continuing to plan it as an in-person event. And whatever we do will in some way be linked, surprise, surprise, to the prevailing COVID alert level at that point in time. So now we have a couple of quick pitches, and I'm going to keep talking whilst I find Vaughan. There he is. I'll unmute Vaughan.
Thank you. Cool. Right. I'll quick pitch then. I am here to pitch Redvespa. So Redvespa is a specialist BA consultancy company. tagline is taking business from where it is to where it could be. And we have BAs all across the country, Wellington, Auckland, and of course, most importantly, Christchurch. And who am I? I'm Vaughan Luckman, and I am the principal consultant down here in Christchurch. And so I guess I get to focus on the really tricky problems. So especially trying to get into the sort of pre-project stage of when you've got a problem and trying to work out where you need to take it and how to solve it. That's the sort of stuff I love getting in on. So yeah, if you have any problems like that, reach out. Otherwise, remember the name.
Thanks, Vaughan. That was a quick pitch. Well done. See if I can find the second of our quick pitches tonight. There's Murray. Murray, go.
Can you hear me? Good.
Yep. Shoot.
Well, my quick pitch is I'm Murray Quartly from Focus 360, SEO specialist and rank websites in the Google search engine. Plus, of course, everyone knows me by virtual tours, I would imagine. If you're having any issues or problems with Google, I'm a level 8 Google guy for Google Maps and Kite now, which means I've got over 7.5 million photo views on Google Maps and over 405,000 review reads. And the bonus of that, it gives me direct access to Google, and which can help solve Google problems really well. For example, on Monday, Rock Gas got in contact with me because they couldn't, their business was deemed as closed, and they had a few customers saying it was closed on Google Maps, and they couldn't get it right, get it open. So I put an edit through, and almost instantly, and I just about fell off my chair too, it changed to open. I've solved a few other problems by going direct to Google. For example, there was a couple of other businesses that couldn't access Google My Business, so I managed to get access for them. So if you're stuck with any issues, like a suspended account, feel free to give me a call. I also believe it or not, when contacting Google, phone calling is not the best, but text chat is the best, because you immediately gain links to help solving the problems. So if you're worried you can't solve anything, I can help you sort it. Don't let it go on. And what else I was going to say is, the Google review for Google Maps is free for any business. That's a Google rule. Secondly is, with regards to the Red Zone virtual tours I did a while ago, they're all back up online if anyone wants to see them. And with regards to the virus, I have been able to I've got a contract now to be one of the contract tracers for COVID-19. So that's right off the Google thing, but that's it.
Good on you. Thanks, Murray. I had a look at your website earlier on today and would encourage anybody to go have a look if you want to know more about what Murray does. Thank you. And now, stop sharing.
Networking technology. It's always entertaining.
I wish it were a lot more straightforward to find people on this thing. There you go. There you are, Andy. There
Lovely.
He is. Shoot.
All right. We're running a little bit ahead of time, which I'm actually really pleased about, because it means we get a little bit longer to talk to the gentleman that we're about to chat with. Stefan Powell co-founded Dawn Aerospace with his brother James in 2016. He is the company's CTO. Dawn Aerospace is redesigning spaceflight with a new road to orbit that is scalable and sustainable. Stefan moved to Christchurch in May last year and has set up a base here with 15 staff. And he was saying to me this afternoon, they've got test flights commencing soon from Oamaru Airport. Welcome, Stefan. Wonderful to have you with us on the meeting this evening.
Oh, I think you might have the wrong Stefan up there, but I'm here nonetheless.
Can we just have one Stefan at a time, please?
Yeah,
there we go.
Too many Stefans. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Yep.
So, Stefan, as we were talking about earlier, what was it that attracted you to studying aerospace and space systems?
Actually, I originally went to Delft University in the Netherlands, and I didn't really want to do space. It was a general aerospace degree, and I was there to get involved in sustainable engineering and wind turbines. TU Delft is really big on designing wind turbine blades. So I got there and actually quickly realized I didn't much like wind turbine blades, and there was a local club doing developing small rockets and whatnot, and I got involved in that really heavily. And over the next 5 years, got to building what was at the time the world's biggest student-built rocket, which we used to break the European altitude record, and we flew it to about 22 kilometers altitude. It did Mach 2.5. The thing weighed about 200 kilograms. It was quite a lot of fun. So I was a propulsion engineer helping develop that. Yeah, that really just made me fall in love with developing rocket engines and that sort of thing.
Fantastic. And that led you to working with Rocket Labs as an intern for a while?
Yeah, exactly. So like just around that time that we had launched that vehicle was a little bit after Rocket Lab had launched Tier 1, and they were just getting into what's now the Electron. They were calling it Orbital back then. And so I was an engineer developing the Rutherford engine, part of the team that put the first test stand together, and I think I was there for about the first 15 test fires of that. So yeah, that was definitely very early days. It's pretty different to what it is now, but yeah, that project certainly come a long way. That was a super interesting experience. So yeah.
So what was it that made you and your brother, along with 3 other founders, go, I think we can add some value here and do something a little bit differently?
Well, it kind of came out of the student project that I just talked about. It was like, it was 6 years of work and about 20-ish seconds of fun, or maybe I think it was 20 seconds of engine burning and another 3 minutes of rocket flying and then falling into the ocean. And it seemed like, man, this is really a hell of a lot of work for not a lot of fun. There's just got to be a better way. Like there's got to be a better way to develop technology. And just across the workshop from us in TU Delft, where we developed this thing, there were other groups that were developing hydrogen-powered cars or race cars like they do at Canterbury as well. And every year they would come out with a better car. It would be a bit faster or a bit lighter or whatever. It was very incremental development, while what we were doing was just a total moonshot. Like, it had to be perfect at the pad, because 99% right is not good enough. If the thing fails, it completely shreds itself. And it's just a horrible way to develop technology in general. So we wanted to break that paradigm, and the best way to do that, in our view, was to go to something that didn't by definition destroy itself. Rockets are destroyed whether they work or not. They land in the ocean. So changing that just was kind of the starting point. It had to be sustainable, not just the end product, but actually the development path along the way had to be an incremental thing to allow you to go out and test things quickly and bring it back into the workshop and improve it and go back out and test it again. Yeah, it was we just got completely fed up with having to be perfect. Actually, it's just too hard that way.
That's quite understandable. But then you go about setting up a company here in New Zealand with a team in overseas, team here in New Zealand. And what is it about the New Zealand aerospace ecosystem that makes that able to be done? It's amazing.
Yeah, so the Dutch side of the company is really great because there's a huge knowledge base in the Netherlands and in Europe in general. It's heaps of good testing facilities and a swath of smart people over there that have a lot of experience in R&D, particularly in aerospace. But what they're not so good at is leaving all of that baggage behind, of thinking really at trying to do new things. While New Zealand doesn't have a lot of that baggage to take with us, we're pretty keen on doing new things, and that makes us actually really great at R&D. And Rocket Lab's a prime example of this. They were able to beat the rest of the world to building a small satellite launcher because Peter Beck and his team were not really encumbered by the past. They were able to use new technologies in ways that people hadn't really thought of, or maybe were just too conservative to think that would really be possible, but they just got out there and did it. And I think that speaks largely to a New Zealand mentality. It's very number 8 wire to some extent, yeah. But it really means we just get out there and get our hands dirty and try it. And I think the aerospace world in general has probably lost a lot of that. Maybe the US had it in the 50s where, they just had to get shit done. And now it all got really conservative in the last 20, 30 years, especially. But we're not like that. We don't have that baggage with us. So we can do things really, really quickly, try new stuff. And then actually the Dutch and German side of the company over in the Netherlands is really good at finishing off these products and perfecting stuff. And particularly for our in-space propulsion things, the stuff that we're already selling and putting on satellites, that really does have to be high quality by the time it gets to the customer. And those very detail focused minds are good at finishing that stuff off.
So tell us a little bit about that propulsion system. So you've got something that's a little bit unique. So the new fuel you're developing, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's these are actually fuels and oxidizers that have been used before, but never in this setting. So it's nitrous oxide and propane. So nitrous oxide, everyone would know, is laughing gas. It's used in hospitals all over the place and
other places.
Yeah, exactly. and propene is pretty similar to propane, which is pretty much just a refined form of LPG. So we can literally buy it from a hardware store. It's that easy to come by. The main problem with what people had previously been using is that it's just really highly toxic. It's really great for larger satellites, and if you have the facilities to deal with those toxins, if you're a big military like the US has, then they can foot the $500,000 bill just to do the paperwork to be able to fuel up the satellite. But in the last 20 years or so, satellites have gotten really, really small, and they're getting very commercial. So there's lots of companies trying to do it cheaply. So they want to launch each of these satellites for about $500,000. And so if they say, well, my whole mission only costs $500,000, and now you're going to tell me I need another $500,000 just to fuel it up, it doesn't really make any sense anymore. So the real innovation there is being able to use these non-toxic but still very high performance fuels at a very small scale. That's where the real innovation is, not so much in the fuels themselves, just in the ability to use them at this scale.
Interesting. That's quite fascinating stuff. Now, what speed is your delivery platform traveling at, and to what altitude are you heading towards?
Yeah, so the vehicle that we're building now, the Mark II, that's actually very similar to the X-15, which, if some of you might know, was a rocket-powered research vehicle NASA built in the 50s and 60s to basically simulate what the space shuttle was going to do. So this will be able to fly. If you flew it not too high, just pretty flat, you'd get to about Mach 5. If you fly up to space, like what we intend to do, you'll do essentially exactly what a first stage of a rocket does. So that's what it's intended to simulate. It's intended to prove that we can fly an aircraft on exactly the same trajectory and performance and everything of a first stage of a rocket. So that's about 120, 130 kilometers altitude, and it'll do about Mach 3-ish on re-entry.
Nice.
So it's 3,000-ish kilometers an hour.
Wow. Impressive. Now, whereabouts are you at the moment in your R&D cycle? Like, are you early prototyping or ready for commercial launch?
We've got our first prototype in the workshop, so it's the first airframe. It's a development airframe. Now, like I said before, a real key to this is it's incremental development. We've got that first airframe. It's definitely a bit heavier. It's not perfect because it's the first one that we've built, and we're going to put jet engines on that first, not the rocket engine, to be able to just start flying that and prove out the aerodynamics, show that all our aerodynamic modeling and whatnot is all shipshape and good. And we'll have that particular aircraft flying to probably 20-ish kilometers altitude. Nothing special. It really is an aircraft. We should have it doing that within the next few months. First flights will be in probably 6 to 8 weeks from now.
And you're doing that from Oamaru Airport? Yeah,
that's certainly the intention, or one of the options. There's another option there as well that we might be able to fly from Pukaki as well. Either is really good. I mean, this is one of the beauties of it being an aircraft, is that doesn't really need super specialist facilities. We don't have to go and build a dedicated launch pad. We can just go use existing facilities. If those fell through, there would be about half a dozen other airports that would be appropriate around New Zealand or even the South Island to go fly from. So we're not that super fussy. And actually, that's one of the real keys of this whole thing is the technology side of it. You know, the rocket or the space plane is about half the cost of going to space, but the other half is actually all in operations. It's nothing to do with the vehicle itself. It's in the launch side and the safety and the having to shut down airspace and all these things that make it really difficult to launch rockets. And that's another thing that we intend to completely revolutionize. We're not even certifying this as a rocket. We'll be certifying it under aircraft rules, so we'll be able to integrate with airspace. So we'll be able to use existing airports and whatnot. And just doing that saves you half the cost. So it's super key as well.
It's quite a revolutionary way of looking at things, I think. And just the fact that, you know, you've got something that, you know, reading the specs, you're planning to be able to take it off and land it up to twice a day. That's quite incredible as a concept. And as a way of getting these satellites up into, you know, into orbit. That's just fascinating. Yeah. But why Christchurch and why Oamaru? What was it about being here that appealed?
Yeah, so certainly like the South Island is really great because we have pretty clear skies for the most part. I mean, there was one major route between Queenstown and Auckland, and that was about the busiest part. But apart from that, there's not really too much.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. The moment's perfect time to go flying. But no, I mean, for development purposes, we'll have to fly in like excluded airspace until we prove that it has safety equivalent to that of an aircraft. We'll have to fly without other aircraft around. So that was important for development reasons. There's plenty of that sort of airspace on the South Island. As opposed to doing it around Auckland. We were previously based up there, and we decided that it's probably easier to move away from Auckland Airport. There's quite a lot that comes into Auckland Airport from all different angles. And Christchurch itself, though, is actually a pretty great place to develop technology as well. The city itself is pretty accessible and pretty affordable, and still has all the services and everything that we need. I mean, so much of our stuff comes in from overseas anyway, that doesn't really make a difference if you're in Christchurch and Auckland, and the local services are every bit as good, so that didn't worry us at all. This being on the South Island allowed us to be close to places like Oamaru or close to places like Pukaki.
Yeah, fantastic. And, you know, we've all heard the story about how Rocket Labs was looking at doing something at Birdlings Flat, and then it all fell through because they couldn't secure resource consent and went for Mahia. So it's wonderful to have Dawn here. I first became aware of you in January when they announced the partnership with Waitaki District Council or the Oamaru Airport. And I was like, ooh, another space team working in Canterbury. That's amazing. And I was just blown away, and hearing what you're doing is phenomenal. At whereabouts do you think what do you think the next couple of years is going to hold for Dawn? How quickly do you think you're going to hit these milestones?
Yeah, so the first things that's happening is that we're getting a whole bunch of our hardware actually flying in space. So that's some of these propulsion modules. We have some on the pad at the moment now, that the rocket was actually delayed because of COVID-19. So we have hardware sitting on the launch pad in French Guiana. That'll be the first exciting thing. The next will be actually flying the Mark II vehicle. So getting that in the air. That'll be exciting, and that'll be a really fast-paced development program. Really excited about that. And then it's just, I mean, it'll just keep going forward. More modules will be launched in September, October, and then another set of a satellite with 6 thrusters on board of the next generation, much larger thrusters should be launched before the end of the year. You know, it's hard to say with schedules at the moment now, but you know, things usually get delayed, but that'll be happening, you know, certainly within the next 12 months. And by that time, we should also be into commercial operation of the Mark II, so we want to be able to start flying payloads on that. Multiple times a day.
Is the virus delaying your timelines? Have you had to push back everything? Because obviously we can't travel people between international destinations between the Netherlands and here. You know, what sort of effect has the COVID-19 had on you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we're not an essential service, so we weren't in our workshops while we were in level 4, but that actually didn't worry us too much. There was, there's a whole bunch of technical debt in what we were doing. When you move so quickly, you end up not doing things super properly all the time. So that actually allowed us to just go back and document what we were doing properly and, cross a few T's and dot a few I's, which actually meant that now that we're back in the workshop, we're moving pretty quickly again. So it was certainly not what we had planned, but I don't think it really slowed us down all that much. In terms of international travel, yeah, that's a little bit annoying. We do have some guys over from the Dutch office in New Zealand at the moment, and so they were having to extend their stay here. But once again, it's not a major. It just forces you to reshuffle things. But we're a company that largely works online anyway. Where there's so much interaction between the Dutch office and the New Zealand one. I think it's about on average 30-ish hours of Zoom calls a day, like total, like man-hour calls a day.
Wow.
So, and we're all online. All our project management stuff's all online and use Slack and whatnot heavily. So suddenly everyone having to be at home was actually pretty trivial change. It was like, oh yeah, okay, some people should probably just take their desktops home, but other than that, it was almost business as usual.
That's good. So that's fantastic, and I think there's a lot of businesses that would have been pleased to have been into that position and able to use some of that time to pay down some of that technical debt that you've accrued over your fast iteration cycles. That's quite impressive. So where do you see this going long term? Are you envisaging that New Zealand and the Netherlands is going to be your only 2 offices? Are you thinking about expanding further globally?
No, so we already have an office in the States as well. It's pretty much just a letterbox at the moment, but certainly that's where a huge part of the market is. There's no 2 ways about it. They generate about half the space activity in the world, and lots of them would prefer to be able to launch from US. So a big part of how we're certifying this aircraft is doing it in a way that we can export that certification overseas. So we're certifying everything out with the Silver Aviation, but then we'll be able to transfer that to FAA to be able to fly out of Midlands, Texas, or Spaceport America or whatnot, which should actually be really quite easy to do. Once again, it's an aircraft, it's not a rocket, so we don't need a huge amount of reconfiguration or reconsideration of what we're doing. It just integrates with their airspace just like any other aircraft would. And yeah, long term, we think we could be doing literally hundreds of flights a year out of the US for US-based customers. That's certainly the plan.
Impressive. So what sort of team composition do you have at the moment in Christchurch and in the Netherlands? How is it all split up?
In terms of like engineering wise, lots of the airframe development and composites work was done in the Netherlands, but actually now that we have an airframe in New Zealand, we'll actually be looking for some composites people here too. Lots of the very nitty gritty, difficult analysis and design work is done in the Netherlands. And then lots of the practical implementation and testing and building hardware and whatnot is done in New Zealand. So a lot of our manufacturing capability is here. So our machinists and test engineers and lots of our propulsion engineers are in New Zealand. So we have our test sites for all that in New Zealand.
So you finding you're competing with Rocket Labs for talent?
If we are, it hasn't been a problem. We're certainly finding plenty of talent. And like I say, we get a lot of talent out of the Netherlands. And a lot of those people are pretty happy to come down to New Zealand as well, especially if they can be here for 6 months over summer and get summer on both ends. They quite enjoy that. Certainly a nice perk. We've certainly had no shortage of talent. More often than not, we're having to turn people down because we just can't scale infinitely fast. There's a limit to that.
So when it comes time to recruit the next round of Dawn Aerospace employees, what sort of people do you think you'll be looking for, Stefan?
We're definitely pretty keen on people who are happy to think quite outside the box and do new things. It's hard to say, we're always keen on people under 25, or we're always keen on people in this field or another, because it is really so broad. A space plane has a huge swath of technology in it, everything from PCB development to control algorithms to experts in 3D printing and machining and composites and data analysis. It's certainly a very multifaceted problem that demands a lot of different skills. Generally, people who just who are passionate about whatever they do, that's probably the one common denominator. Also, that spans across ages. We have a significant number of people who are in their 40s as well, and obviously in 30s and 20s. It's quite a spread. People who are passionate, that's the main thing.
Awesome. Now, hey, you congratulations on making the finalist in the High Tech Awards, both as an individual and 2 categories as a company. I'm guessing this has attracted a bit of interest since the announcement. What's changed for you?
I think it has. Although, to be honest, I think like a lot of it maybe just went straight over my head, because we were completely dealing with COVID-19 situation when those announcements came out. And if we actually win one, or when the awards happen in 20-ish days, that it'll hit me a bit more. But yeah, there was a bit of a social media flurry, and some people called me up to congratulate me. But other than that, been pretty business as usual. Yeah, maybe a few more LinkedIn hits, but other than that.
Well, congratulations. It's, just to get nominated is quite the thrill. So well done on that, and all the best for the final outcome when that happens. Now, there may be a few people in the audience tonight that are familiar with Dawn Aerospace, but I imagine many are hearing about this for the first time. What can our Canterbury Tech membership do for you? What else do you need, Stefan?
Well, at this point, we're definitely pretty conservative in our expansion. Obviously it's not the best time to be growing a business aggressively, but that certainly will probably change pretty quickly. And when it does, we'll be wanting to get a lot of talented people in really, really quickly, which is certainly a hard thing to do. It's hard to find that talent when you need it. So that will be, these sorts of channels are exactly where we go to when we need people. Christchurch Aerospace is one that we've had success with in the past, but actually this is, I believe, the first time that I've even attended a Canterbury Tech meeting. So certainly that would be useful. Other than that, we're more and more active in the community as well. We're using a lot of local suppliers for everything from laser welding to sourcing difficult to get alloys and laser cutting and machining and whatnot. We're getting more and more active in the engineering community. So just talking to everyone's super helpful, and being able to continue to draw on the community's experience and knowledge is just invaluable. So yeah.
Well, we'll be watching with real interest. And look, I believe we've got a couple of questions. Brent, have you been monitoring the chat question channel there?
Yes, I'm assuming you can hear me now. We've got a couple of questions. Very good. Got a couple of questions. Helen wants to know how you have found accessing funding down here.
Yeah, we're actually really lucky in that we have very good connections to the States. So in our last funding round, we were very intentional about getting funding not just from New Zealand, from the Ice House, who led the round, but also venture capital from the States and from the Netherlands as well. So that was, we already kind of had planted our flag in those 3 places. So it's actually not too hard for us to get a meeting with just about any VC in Silicon Valley if we want. It's more just a case of knowing exactly what to tell them. At least pre-COVID, it was pretty easy to just hop on a plane and go over there and talk to them. I guess that'll have to change from now, but we'll see how that goes.
A few more Zoom calls for that. There's another one here from Clark. Sorry if I missed it, but does the aircraft have a second stage?
Yeah, so certainly the final design, the Mark III, as we call it, is going to be a suborbital space plane. So it'll be able to fly up to 120 kilometers altitude, exactly what a first stage does, and then that second stage will deliver the thing to space. So in the early designs, that second stage will be expendable, just like it is on regular rockets today. But this is, once again, part of the incremental development part. Because it's an aircraft that we get back every time, we can always improve it. We can increase the performance of the first stage. We can make it lighter. We can make the engines better, and a whole bunch of things that make that second stage smaller. So eventually, we believe we'll be able to get to a system where we can completely reuse the second stage, or it will become so small that it's very cost effective and not worrisome from a sustainability point of view to expend that second stage.
And the last question here is from Valerie. How would you define the next milestone when you can decide to scale up?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So that's exactly what we're trying to do with the Mark II. It's about demonstrating all of the key technologies that we need to be able to do same-day reusability on a first stage. So that's everything from having the engine technology down, because it's non-cryogenic technology, it's all storable. Being able to actually build an aircraft is actually quite a tricky thing, of course, and being able to deal with re-entry is also quite a tricky one. It's a lot easier than it is for rockets because we have wings, but still being able to deal with the aerodynamic loads, and there's some pretty tricky control problems in there as well around coming back through very high Mach numbers and being able to maintain stability and still get your aircraft back at very, very high reliability. So, one of the key points here is that you want to be sure that, only 1 in every 10,000 flights is going to have an anomaly, so that you can really argue, okay, this is an aircraft. We're able to certify it as an aircraft because it is extremely reliable. And then even in that anomaly situation, you'll be able to have some sort of redundant system or some way of ensuring safety to the public. That's just absolutely mental reliability in terms of rockets. There's no rocket in existence that's even achieved 99% reliability, let alone 100 times better than that.
And there's one here. Nicholas has just popped up. Greetings from Oamaru. Do you plan to have any specific technical capabilities here?
Yeah, so certainly we'll be developing our ground ops there. So that'll be everything from hangars to fueling stations and maintenance type equipment will be there. It won't have to be super substantial to start with, but that'll certainly grow over time. We intend to build a fleet of these aircraft. We're planning at least 3 of these initial Mark II vehicles. And so there's a very good chance that we'll have a couple of those stationed at an airport, which certainly could be Oamaru.
Exciting. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Stefan. It's been fantastic to actually learn a bit about what Dawn Aerospace is doing, and look forward to seeing you guys as an active participant in the Canterbury tech sector over the coming months and years.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. It's been great to be on the show.
Thank you. All right, we're going to do some networking now. So we're going to use the Zoom breakout rooms and chuck you into a virtual room for 10 minutes for a conversation with potentially a few random strangers, or it may actually be people that you already know. Welcome back. Hopefully that was good. I enjoyed that. That was excellent, although we ran out of time.
Yeah, sorry about that. We were trying to keep it to under an hour and a quarter all up. So
No, it's fine. The only person that didn't get to introduce themselves was me, so that's perfectly fine. All right. Now we're on to our second part of the meeting, and I'm delighted to have Hannah Hardy-Jones on the call. She spent much of her career working in human resources, but after starting her family, felt the startup bug bite and is the founder and CEO of the Kite program, a global HR tech solution that helps their clients understand their employees' unique well-being, training, and mental health challenges, and have created an incredible app solution for this. Thank you for joining us, Hannah.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Excuse the mess behind me. This is Lego, which I just didn't clean up because I thought that no one would care. But yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So first of all, Hannah, tell us a little bit about your background prior to becoming or feeling the bug to start a startup, because we were talking about that yesterday and I was quite amused.
Yeah.
So what's your background?
So I studied psychology and worked in HR, and I was such a, I guess, a driven career person. So my vision board in terms of my career was to be GM of HR for Air New Zealand. I'm not kidding. I had it all over my board, and I was quite prepared to give up, having a family to get to that goal, and so on. But we did decide to have a family, and that was, I guess, where everything changed in terms of, had the baby and things didn't go to plan, and my mental health really suffered. So kind of completely unexpectedly, that was where everything changed. And I guess my goal and what was driving me was very different. So I went back to my career in HR, but I then had a very much a maternal mental health focus to what I wanted to be doing, and that was kind of the pivot point for me for Kite.
And so what made you want to create an application, and because initially it was for mums, wasn't it? So people like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I designed a program for mums, which I thought would be delivered sort of on the phone or in sort of focus groups. And it really became apparent that, I realized I wanted to impact as many mothers as I possibly could on a global scale. And so an app was the most logical solution. But I designed the whole program before thinking of it as an app. And so, that was kind of the next journey of how do I actually get this program I've created into a solution. And
I know you had a little bit of fun along the way with that. So you brought in an outsourced development organization. How did that experience go?
Yeah, in hindsight, I feel like it's my punishment for not going for a New Zealand or Christchurch-based development company, but I decided to use Appster. So those of you who are familiar with Appster, they were a multi-million-dollar development company that was set up by a pair of 19-year-olds. By the time I sort of came to them, it had been around for sort of 6 or 7 years. And 2 weeks before we launched Kite for Mums, the whole company liquidated. So wiped off the face of the earth, no contact with anyone. So you can imagine, naive me, I'd gone to this company because it was all shiny and, they bought you dinner, and it was just, it didn't turn out how we had hoped. So that was a pretty, crazy experience to go through that.
But you were able to get things back on track. I think you said to me yesterday, you had their creative director reach out to you?
Yeah, through LinkedIn. He sent me a message and said, can you ring me on my personal number? We've all lost our jobs. Appster's gone under. But I want to help you because, it was so critical. We had a launch in 2 weeks' time. That was pushed out anyway, but we got back on track with some contacts they had through Dubai. So at the moment, it's with Dubai because that's been kind of the easiest way as we're rolling out more products, not trying to change what we're doing. So yeah, we were really lucky. Unlike a lot of people at that time, a lot of their clients sort of lost absolutely everything, which is devastating.
And so you spent a bit of time building the app up and getting a global audience for it. Yep. And then suddenly we hit the current crisis and you go, hang about, I think there's something I can do here.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so Kite for Mums was really successful as a solution. And last November, we launched into the business community to create the exact same product, but reskinned and the content of our clients, which was fantastic. And that was kind of just starting to grow. And yeah, 5 weeks ago when this hit, we've got a solution at the moment where you can populate it with any content you like, and it's a micro learning solution. So you've got this amazing program. And so we created COVID related topics, what we call kites. There was a team of 5 of us. We literally worked 18-hour days for 5 days and got the most amazing program together of 27 modules for people for this time, for what they're going through personally, from a social perspective, leadership perspective. So yeah, we launched that Kite support 5 weeks ago, and it's going really well.
So where are the people from in the world that are using Kite support?
Yeah, so mostly we have people from the UK using it, a number in the US. We have a client in the US who actually bought subscriptions for all of his staff, but then also bought double the amount to then give to frontline workers that they knew, which we thought was amazing. Australia and of course New Zealand, but New Zealand at the moment, the pain point for us is not the same as what it is overseas. So, we've got, employers using it and sharing that for their staff, probably more from a remote working perspective and the challenges there. But overseas, you've got a whole raft of issues that we're not facing because we don't, the virus hasn't hit us the same way.
Yeah, that's true. And, it's quite a phenomenal 5 days to go from woe to go, literally.
Yeah.
I've disappeared again. There we go. That's better. So that, and going now global, what sort of organizations would you recommend are looking at this product?
So for Kite support, it really suits organizations with, probably fewer than 150 staff. Anything above that, we would recommend having something more tailored to the brand and creating the material much more about the vision and values of that company. But often companies smaller than that, they're not going to be able to I guess, the funds to do that. So Kite support is a lot more affordable for a year, and we've made that, purposefully. This isn't a profit making exercise for that product. It's about just getting that kind of development and HR support that they need. But we've had clients with sort of 300-400 staff just buying just the subscriptions and not tailoring it, which is absolutely fine too.
And what are the benefits of the application?
Yeah, so the biggest part is the micro learning. So it's really, we've got to be really clear in saying this isn't a mental health solution. So if somebody is struggling with their mental health, they need to get help for that. This is very much about, the sort of information that you get through training and through your organization in terms of your personal development and your leadership development and so on. So that micro learning becomes so effective, especially during this time where we're bombarded by 1,000,001 bits of information through LinkedIn, through the news, through our friends. You can never actually, it's really difficult to implement those skills and solutions. So what Kite does is it breaks it down into tiny 5-minute pieces. And these are really practical things. Hey, how about you connect with someone else over this? Or as a leader, how about you frame something this way? So it's all very manageable. And that's the feedback that we're getting from people, is that, it isn't an overwhelming program. And if you don't want to continue on, if you don't tick the tick for that day, for that activity, it will just wait for you. So there's no pressure on people. And that's a really, really big part of it too. But skills development is the biggest part, and building skills for resilience rather than giving people tools for their mental health as such, if that makes sense.
So, and you've got a team of 5 people currently. Mm-hmm. Where do you envisage this going long term? What's the medium and long term plan for it, Hannah?
Yeah, so Kite support as a product with the team of us 5, we see it being COVID related, but as a product being around change and adversity. So morphing into supporting people through, redundancies, etc. Which is really, it's going to become more and more prevalent. So that's that product. I've also got a team of consultants for Kite for Business for this tailored solution, and I've got someone in Honduras, for example, who will be looking at Latin America, and we can translate that into Spanish. So in terms of Kite for Business, it can be applied anywhere for any organization in any language, because we just make versions of it for each one, which is really exciting. So there's just no limit with it.
Yeah. Would you ever envisage, 3 years ago that you'd be here today?
No way. I mean, I never actually even saw myself as a leader, even being in a position now and having this amazing team. I always saw myself as being the HR practitioner that supported the leader, let alone having a tech solution. It's amazing how things can turn around so quickly. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Put a call into the GM of HR at Air New Zealand yet?
Yeah, I feel like maybe they might be needing Kite support to support them through this time, rather than I mean, it's an awful situation that they're in, and that's the thing we've got at the moment with COVID, is that businesses, there's so much uncertainty, and some will come through it and some won't, and there's just a lack of support for people. We're kind of at extreme ends. We've got support for people with severe mental health issues, and then we've got people who are really, really, functioning well. And then there's most of us in the middle that just need some support in certain areas in our life. And that's where we come in at that point.
Now, I think you'd put some slides together just quickly. Do you want to talk us through those?
Yeah, I will. What I was going to do is just show you, it's easy to see visually then, what the solution's like, because, if I share this now, is that going to work? Does that work there?
Yes.
So Kite is all about the visual. So I don't think of us like an app. So it's not about logging emotions, or it's not tracking anything. And it's a sort of a calming design, rather than it feeling like you're looking at tech, sort of a beautiful book, or along those lines. So this is our Kite support product at the moment, a big focus on personal, social, new ways of working, and leadership skills. This is an example of Kite for Mums. So you can see, obviously, it's got a much more feminine look and feel to it. And the activities arrive in this sort of way. Within the Kite Mums product, there's 14 different modules. This is our Kite for Business module, which our clients can have any colouring, any kite covers, any home screen that they wish, and again, they can have the topics and kites that they wish for their people, whether it's about their well-being or their training and development or health and safety and so on. We're just about to launch actually a range of Kite for Industry products, which are standard subscriptions, so construction, recruitment, legal and health. And we're also working on retail at the moment. So these are similar to Kite Support, which are just subscription products. A client won't be able to tailor it, but it's really, really relevant to that industry. And what I thought I would just touch on really quickly from a practical perspective of how to actually build resilience, and the sort of some of the things that we talk about within the app too, is based on these 6 components. So building connections is obviously a massive part of building that resilience toolkit. And during adversity and what we're going through now, what we find is that sometimes you can actually push people away. You're so busy, or you're juggling kids, or people are like, I'm just bored, I don't have anything to actually talk about. So during these times, it's about connecting as much as possible, which is obviously why events such as this are so key, especially now. But finding ways of nurturing the people that make you feel good, the people that you have a positive impact on your life, and sort of prioritizing that is really key. When we talk about fostering wellness, it's not about having really high standards for that. We talk about it as having minimum, like what is the minimum amount of sleep that you need? What is the minimum amount of water you need to drink in the day? Vitamin D. So it's actually creating that, making sure that you are doing that minimum amount, and not having these unrealistic expectations, because I think that's what happens a lot, is that we need to be eating perfectly, exercising every day, and so on. Finding purpose is not about sort of the airy fairy. It's just about doing things that you know, you feel are making a difference, whether that's helping someone, whether that's doing a project that you've got a goal, and it can be tiny. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to just, you know, completely turn my life around and start a new business. Seeking help is just obviously around in New Zealand, we're not fantastic at seeking help, especially in this space where you're not necessarily got a chronic condition or you need a doctor, mental health, you know, that you're talking through your mental health. It's about just help from your manager or help from your friends to go, you know, I'm actually just really feeling not great and I need to kind of come up with some solutions, and just not being afraid to do that. And learning is a huge part of what we do at Kite, but which is the positive impact that learning new skills has on your brain and has on your well-being. So whether that's bringing in tiny amounts of a podcast, of a book, you know, reading a page a day, and that's why in Kite we put a lot of links to really interesting TED Talks and articles, so you're constantly growing that knowledge, which is really good for you. And self-awareness is obviously a lot. There's a huge part of that, which is just understanding emotions, noticing how you react to certain situations, and then more so finding tools that you can actually go, you know, I'm feeling this way, I need to do A, B, C, and that will help, you know, creating a really strong resilience toolkit for those emotions. So those are kind of the very quick, broad kind of what we focus on and what we do at Kite, working with particularly businesses on creating some of those things for their staff. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Brent, I think I've seen some questions pop up through the chat.
Yes, there have been some questions. There's some comments as well. There's a few people enjoying the small person that was peeking through the window a little earlier. They appear to have gone and had their dinner or been put to bed,
yeah.
on the age. First question from Saxon. Mental health interventions can have benefits, but there is also risk of unintended harm. How do you monitor adverse outcomes or validate the online versus face-to-face effectiveness?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I guess that's what I was saying about having a very clear distinction. So we're not a mental health resource, but within the app there's a very clear button, which is Are You Okay? Which is all of the mental health resources that are available. And that includes domestic violence, that includes drug helplines. So we're saying, you know, work through this program. It's evidence-based, science-backed, business skills. But if you are struggling, you know, see this area. So I absolutely agree. There's some really concerning evidence around apps and it being a mental health intervention as such.
Cool. Rob has asked, given your journey and the learnings, what would you do differently if you were going to do it again?
I would listen more. So I get very, very excited about ideas and I am just full in a china shop. So there were people saying to me, you know, hey, have you thought about this or should you do this? And one of my biggest things was Kite for Mums. I let there be a free trial and then there was no automatic rollover to payment, which is pretty much every other app. And I did that because I felt I wanted to be kind to mothers. That was a ridiculous business decision and 10 different people told me not to do that, but you know, I didn't. So that's a really good learning, I think, from my perspective.
Helen has asked, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of what you are doing?
So for our business solutions, we have links at the start and end of each Kite, which gets people's feedback on how they're currently feeling and then the effectiveness of that Kite. And we then ask them for feedback sort of 3 months down the track. So throughout that journey, we're getting a lot of information about how things work. In terms of our subscription solutions, we don't put survey links in there, but we're using the same type of content for the same type of topics that we do for our business solution. And we say that, you know, if a Kite is 10 days worth of activities, if 2 of those resonate with you, that's fantastic. We don't expect every day for it to be blow your mind, I'm going to do this every day. But it's just about learning different tools and techniques and trying them out.
And not so much a question, but Kirsty has said you're doing amazing work, and Paul has validated as well. I know Catherine Jackson well, and she has such a wealth of knowledge on the resilience piece you're doing. I've been recommending your product to our clients and mums, having had my own struggles with all of that as well. Keep up the great work.
Awesome, thank you.
Hannah has also jumped in and said you're doing fantastic work. And I'd just like to add that I have downloaded the app as well, and we'll be playing with it this evening.
Awesome, great.
So thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing a bit of your journey and the experiences that you've had and what you're doing with the business. Hannah, really do appreciate that, sharing that with our community. And now we're going to go into a last final breakout room for another 10 minutes to wrap up this evening. You'll see a countdown pop up, and the meeting will completely end at the end of that countdown. So we hope you've enjoyed it this evening. I hope my hairline hasn't been too crazy. And we will be back on Tuesday, June the 2nd, 4 weeks from today, for our next monthly meeting. Our survey will go out tomorrow, obviously, for your feedback on this evening. We would appreciate you giving as much feedback as you can. And look, if there's anything in particular you'd like us to focus on in future meetings, please do let us know that as well. You know, we're trying new things, new formats, and it's fun times. So we're very, very open to conversation, discussion around how to tweak things as we go. We may potentially do another Zoom social gathering between now and the next meeting if there is a desire for that. So watch the space. We'll reach out through our normal comms channel if we go ahead with that. Thanks very much to Stefan and Hannah and to all of you for joining us. We had about 100 people on the call earlier, so fantastic. Neil, when you're ready.
So
I agree with that.
24 people stick with it. Well done. All the way to the end. A few familiar faces
Well done,
there.
Neil. I'm going to jump
Neil.
off, but good job. Excellent.
Thank
good one.
you.
Kevin, I look forward to getting some music submissions from you, Kev.
Oh, look, there's a brand new New Zealand Auckland band called Outside In. Fantastic album due out at the end of the month. I wrote the press release, so they're bound to be good, eh?
Good plug. Love it.
Oh,
Okay.
send them through. Send them through. We had FKJ today. We've had, who else have we had? We had, was it
LAB last time.
month?
Yeah.
I will send you the WAV files after this, Andy.
Sounds good, Kev.
All right. Let's
right.
wrap.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you
See
next
ya.
time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining.
Cheers.
Andy.
Bye. Thank you.